With part two of this video, I wish to talk a little bit more about the proper role of the senses, as well as the problem of how our dispositions can lead us to have inclinations which are actively harmful for us and how that could have come to pass. Now, with the proper role of the senses, we have learned from Descartes that they are basically, we will learn from Descartes that they are to keep us out of trouble, that essentially they are to tell us what to pursue and what to shun. They're not meant to tell us the true nature of the world. So basically, the senses keep us from harm. And this becomes very clear when one of the senses fails. I found it to be quite striking when I thought about the sense of smell, and I heard somebody who I knew, didn't know her very well, explain to me how handicapped she was lacking the sense of smell. Now, if you lack the sense of sight or touch, we can think of all sorts of ways that we would get into trouble very quickly. On the other hand, with a sense of smell, it's a little bit less obvious, but her descriptions brought home the point very strongly. For example, she said that it was impossible for her to cook at the house because, unless there was somebody else there, because it was too easy for her to forget something in the oven. Now, we don't forget things in the oven very often, but when we do, pretty quickly our nose picks up on this and we take care of the problem. She never would. She'd have to have smoke in her eyes before she realized that she had forgotten something in the oven, and that's a little bit late. You're already in danger of burning down the house at that point in time. You would hope to catch it much earlier. So she had to be very, very careful in that regard. Likewise, she said she often gave herself food poisoning, and she told a particular story that I found to be quite a little bit disgusting, but also quite striking. After this, in fact, the whole description came after she missed a few days of class, and she said the reason was she had been sick. Basically, she had taken some milk that had gone bad, poured it over her cereal, had eaten half the bowl of cereal before tasting that there was something wrong with the milk and that in fact it had gone bad. Now, we all have this experience. We know what she is talking about, but normally when we open up a carton of milk that has gone bad, of course we smell it right away and we throw it out. But she could not pick that up. She'd have to do it via taste, and via taste it's simply not that obvious. It would take eating half the bowl of cereal before she would realize that, and by then it was already too late. She was going to be sick with food poisoning. So the role of the senses is to keep us from harm. All right, and not to reveal to us the true nature of the world. Now, the second element is if the senses should keep us from harm, why do we have some dispositions and inclinations which lead us to do things which actively harm us? I want to particularly explore the issue of our diet and that we have a tendency in contemporary society to consume excess amounts of salt, sugar, and fat. It seems rather perverse, even from an evolutionary perspective, that we would have evolved these dispositions which lead us to have excessive weight, lead us to have cardiovascular problems and many of diabetes and so forth, many of the problems associated with modern living. How does this come to pass? Why do we have these dispositions that are harmful for us? Well, if you look at human evolutionary history, you can see that under normal conditions, what would have been normal conditions for us during our evolutionary history, we could not possibly have had excessive amounts of salt, sugar, and fat. In fact, we are programmed essentially to consume as much salt as possible because it helps limit intake of the need to drink water and also the elimination of water. As much sugar as an energy source. And if you go on a near sugar-free diet for an extended time, it's surprising how low you are in energy. You can sense this very quickly. And fat, which is going to help us survive winters and times when food stores are lacking. So basically, we are programmed to consume as much salt, sugar, and fat as we possibly can because over our evolutionary history, we cannot possibly get enough of it. So these three elements tended to limit human populations. Now, in contemporary society, of course, where we have all the salt, sugar, and fat that we could possibly want right in our own refrigerators, these dispositions that we have coming from our evolutionary history lead us to consume excessive amounts of salt, sugar, and fat. This is an eloquent argument that we are living under non-normal conditions and that we have to take steps basically to counteract dispositions which would, if left unrecognized, which would lead us to have habits which are actively harmful for our health. All right, that brings us to an end of this video.